Hello and welcome to Camp Kaiju Monster Movie Reviews. We are your hosts, Vincent Hannum
and Matt Levine.
And man, are we excited to kick off Kaiju July here at Camp Kaiju. We're first of all, we're still buzzing from our Jurassic World Dominion episode, which Matt, you can agree or disagree. I thought it turned out pretty well.
It was a great conversation, better than the movie itself, I would say.
Damn. I mean, I would agree.
I couldn't resist.
Sorry. No, that's fine. Since then, I revisited Jurassic Park, the original, and first of all, I can't believe I haven't seen it since I was a kid. Second of all, that movie is just blew me away. Going back to our earlier Duel conversation, where I blasphemously put Duel ahead of Jurassic Park. I have to change my mind on that. Jurassic Park is a masterwork.
Totally agree. That's totally fair. Personally, I still would put Duel slightly ahead of Jurassic Park, but that's just because I love Duel so much. Jurassic Park is a nearly flawless movie. It's amazing. And I feel like every Jurassic Park sequel inevitably will be compared to that, which is like a good and a bad thing. Like, of course, it's great that the original is so fantastic, but none of the sequels can live up to that. They have no chance.
So let's just enjoy a dinosaur movie, I guess.
Yeah, true. Good point.
What else? Oh, everybody. So thank you for listening to that. Thank you for joining us on Kaiju July. Please like, review, rate Camp Kaiju wherever you podcast and the social medias. And Matt, what are we talking about tonight?
Tonight we're talking about Ghidorah, the Three-Headed Monster by Ishiro Honda from 1964. To start off our Kaiju July month, we're getting back to basics, some of the classic kaiju movies. This is one of the best, definitely one of the best that I've seen. I'm very, very excited to talk about this movie.
Yeah, because this was new to you, right?
Indeed. And, full confession, like the classic kaiju movies is not my forte. I don't know. I've seen a lot of them, but certainly not all of them. So many of these will be first-time watches for me. And I was blown away by this movie. I was grinning like an idiot throughout the entire thing. It is so fun and definitely one of the best kaiju movies that I've seen.
Yes, absolutely. And to make you feel a little bit better, a lot of these Showa era films just weren't widely available to US markets before, like streaming or DVD, mass market DVD collections. So I did not see Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster until I was an adult, out of college, living on my own. I was gifted a box set of these old movies and I went, this is a treasure trove, a treasure chest. A lot of these, even Rodan, we get to later this month, and Terror of Mechagodzilla, all new to me in the past 10 years, several years.
That does make me feel a little bit better. And, it makes me excited too, because I feel like we're going to have a lot more kaiju movies that like maybe don't get all the love that they deserve, which we're going to talk about later, not only this month, but just like in future installments of Camp Kaiju.
Yeah, and hold that thought when we start talking about Ishiro Honda with the cast and crew. I want to plug some of his non-Godzilla kaiju movies because they are every bit as good as a Godzilla movie, and they're just their own creatures, their own strange beasts.
Perfect use of the phrase "strange beast." I love that, and I'm very excited to hear more about that.
Thank you. But it's okay. Where are we off to?
Yeah. So, I mean, stay tuned later in the episode. We'll go into more detail about what we're doing later in July with our Kaiju July month. But, yeah, we can just dive right into Ghidorah, the Three-Headed Monster with a little plot synopsis, if that works for you.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So the opening credits of Ghidorah, which are awesome, feature a flash forward to some of the monster fights that we'll see later in the movie. And then after the opening credits, we kick into the story itself, which starts at 2 a.m. A group of UFO enthusiasts looks to the skies on a rooftop. They're joined by a skeptical reporter named Naoko, who is doing a television story on the group. Suddenly, a meteor shower rains down on Japan, with the largest meteor crashing into Mount Kurodake.
We're then introduced to other characters in the rather large ensemble, including Naoko's brother Shindo, who is a police detective, and other reporters. They discuss strange natural occurrences, such as an encephalitis outbreak and unusually warm weather for the middle of winter. Shindo is then given a new assignment to protect Princess Salno of Selgina. Is that right?
Selgina, maybe? I don't know.
We'll go
It's a
with
good question.
Selgina.
According to the subtitles, anyway, it's Selgina, Selgana, something like that.
Okay. Well, I'll read that sentence again. Shindo is then given a new assignment to protect Princess Salno of Selgina on her upcoming visit to Japan.
So aboard her airplane, Princess Solno communicates with an unknown alien entity outside of the plane. The alien entity apparently possesses Solno and then forces her to leap out of the cabin of the airplane right before the plane explodes. We later find out that the airplane was blown up by Princess Solno's political enemies. Meanwhile, in this already pretty convoluted plot, a team of scientists led by Professor Miura investigates the crashed meteor, which is randomly emitting magnetic waves.
The reporter, Naoko, is sent to investigate a prophet who claims to be from the planet Venus and warns others that the monster Rodan will soon awaken from Mount Aso. From a newspaper photograph, Detective Shindo discovers that the prophet from Venus has inhabited the body of Princess Salno, whom he was supposed to protect and who he thought died in the airplane explosion. Unfortunately, the princess's reappearance also attracts the attention of assassins from her home country who set out to kill her.
True to the prophet's warning, Rodan reawakens. Meanwhile, twin fairies from Mothra's island, Infant Island, the two twin fairies are known as the Shobin, participate in a TV news program, then set out to return home until the Venusian prophet warns them not to set sail. We soon find out why the prophet warned the twin fairies not to set sail. Godzilla awakens from the sea and destroys the ship that they were supposed to sail on mid-voyage. The Shobin join Naoko as she takes Princess Solno to a hotel in secret. Assassins show up to kill the princess, but thankfully they fail.
As Godzilla and Rodan fight on the outskirts of the city, the princess, still possessed by the Venusian, predicts the arrival of King Ghidorah, a three-headed beast that has destroyed civilizations throughout the galaxy, including her home on Venus. Sure enough, Professor Miura and his team witness Ghidorah awaken from the meteor and attack the city of Matsumoto. The Shobin say that the only way to defeat Ghidorah is for Godzilla, Rodan, and Mothra to team up and take it down. So Mothra emerges from its home island and scuttles to Japan, interrupting the catfight between Godzilla and Rodan to plead with them to battle Ghidorah.
Godzilla and Rodan initially refuse, saying they've been bullied by humans for years and have no reason to intervene. But after seeing Mothra attempt to battle Ghidorah herself, Godzilla and Rodan join in the fight. The three of them eventually are able to overwhelm Ghidorah and force it to fly into the heavens. Meanwhile, an assassin from Selgina attempts to kill the princess once again and grazes her with a bullet, which causes the Venusian alien to leave her body. Now herself, once again, the princess returns to her home country, saying a bittersweet farewell to Detective Shindo, who has fallen in love with her.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a good story.
Yeah, a couple things. I wanted to ask, did you watch the dubbed or subbed version?
Subbed version.
Me too.
Which I believe, the complete, I know the American re-release had some scenes cut out of it, but I'm fairly sure that I watched the complete original version.
Probably. Where did you see that?
Well, I watched it on HBO Max. They have the version that the Criterion Collection recently put out. So
yeah. I watched that one too.
Nice.
What?
Sorry, I was going to say it's very well restored. It looks really, really great.
Yeah, I have all of the Criterion Collection on DVD or Blu-ray. That was gifted to me. Humble brag. I will say though, like I just like as a film lover, I love hearing the original Japanese and reading it.
Mm-hmm.
However, like my inner kid just grew up with the the dubbed versions,
mm-hmm.
which I will say the advantage for me is that it's easier to throw that version on and like do other things while I'm watching the movie.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. This is a movie that I think is deserving of your full attention, you know, like so I don't mind it's subtitled all that much, but
I agree.
yeah.
Yeah.
I feel kind of the same way about kung fu movies because I've loved kung fu movies for a
Mm.
very, very long time. And most of the ones that I watched when I was a kid were dubbed. And now to like watch like the new nice and fancy restorations with subtitles, it's great to see it in the way that it was intended with the original dialogue. But yeah, especially if you're going for the camp value, it does like a little bit is lost in translation, you know?
Yeah. And I wonder just like if I ever have children one day, I'm gonna want to introduce them to the dubbed version because they're kids and that's what's gonna hook them to Godzilla.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to scare them off. I want them to enjoy it.
Totally, yeah. But then, years down the road, they can watch the subtitled version. It's
That's
there are certainly merits to both. So
that's what I think.
yeah, I love that plan. Yeah,
My second, I just want Ghidorah. I say Ghidorah. Ghidorah is also acceptable. I sometimes go in and out of both.
yeah. I thought that the dialogue said Ghidorah for the most part. I could be wrong about that. Also, this is like a little bit of a tangent, but I really love the rapper MF Doom. Rest in
Mm.
peace. He died a couple years ago, and he had a side project called King Ghidorah, which had a lot of samples from this movie.
Oh.
So that I'm maybe influenced by that a little bit as well.
Okay, and he says Ghidorah.
He does, yes. Or at least the
Oh,
samples that he uses say Ghidorah.
well, I just feel like a dumb American then.
I think you're right. Both are acceptable.
Ghidorah. All right.
Beautiful. I love that pronunciation.
The rest of my Japanese isn't as bad as that. But man, watching these movies is also a test on Japanese pronunciation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like maybe the subtitle version is helpful for that reason as well, you know?
That's true. So I'll just go into the cast and crew a little bit if that's okay,
Sure.
and put my pronunciations to the test. Please stop me if I'm way off base. So we have Yosuke Natsuke as Detective Shindo. We have Yuriko Hoshi as the reporter Naoko. She, right? Correct.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. She was previously seen in Mothra versus Godzilla, which was also released in 1964. We have Hiroshi Koizumi as Professor Miura. He was previously in Godzilla Raids Again from 1956. So 8 years later, he's in another Godzilla movie. We have Akiko Wakabayashi as Princess Salno, ostensibly the one of the leads, one of the stars of this movie. She would later go on to play a Bond girl in 1967's You Only Live Twice. Matt, I'm sure you have thoughts to share about that movie connection.
Yeah, it's not very good. I don't really like that movie very much, and I'm a huge Bond fan. I think that's one of the weaker Connery movies, and definitely has some questionable kind of Japanese exoticism, you know. But she's great in it. There are some good supporting characters in that movie. The thing that I think is interesting is that Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, sometimes kind of plays like a spy movie, you know. So it's easy to like imagine how she made the leap from this movie to a Bond movie only a couple years later.
Yeah, and I think it's really neat to see. I mean, just kind of not that I agree with it, but my impression is in the 1960s, Western cinema was very isolation, kept itself distant from Eastern cinema, and for an actress, a Japanese actress, to suddenly have a really nice role in a James Bond movie, I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and she's great. I think, I don't know a lot about her career after You Only Live Twice, but I think it definitely like increased her exposure a little bit and
Yeah,
and led to more roles. So yeah, that movie's worth watching if only for that reason. Definitely.
right. But I agree. It is one of the weaker Sean Connery films.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Really interesting. Playing the little twin fairies, the Shobin, are the musical duo known as the Peanuts. They were a Japanese vocal group consisting of twin sisters Emi and Yumi Ito. Their voices were so similar that their singing often sounded like a solo artist with like a slight reverb. They are returning from Mothra, 1961, and Mothra versus Godzilla, again from 1964. So it's nice to see them again. They offer a really nice, unique character to the movie. Again, keeping in the tradition with other previous Mothra movies, there's a lot of singing and music and some dancing that's involved with the Shobin, which I think is unique in a really good way.
One of my favorite scenes in the movie. Yeah, it's incredible. I love their first appearance. It's great.
Yeah, you should definitely check out the other Mothra movies, if even for just them. They're
Oh,
great.
I can't wait. Yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, Mothra movies get a little get real weird real quick.
That's music to my ears. Yeah.
Yeah. Then playing the monsters, we have Haruo Nakajima as Godzilla, the one and only Nakajima. He played Godzilla throughout the Showa era. We have Masanori Shinohara as Rodan, Shoichi Hirose as Ghidorah, and he had to spend hours hunched over in the costume, grabbing a crowbar or a crossbar, sorry, for support. We'll get more to the ingenuity of the Ghidorah costume later on. And Hirose also played King Kong in King Kong versus Godzilla 2 years prior. So the film Ghidorah, the Three-Headed Monster, is directed by Ishiro Honda, who also directed and co-wrote the original Gojira that spawned the whole franchise. He ultimately directed 8 Godzilla movies and many other kaiju films throughout his career. Ghidorah was his third kaiju movie of 1964 alone, following Mothra versus Godzilla and Daggora. So it is not an understatement to say that Ishiro Honda is one of the preeminent not only monster directors but just directors in film history, probably.
Yeah, I mean, Godzilla is a classic, inside or outside of the kaiju genre for sure. And the more movies that I see by him, which admittedly is not very much at this point, I'm like more impressed every time. His visual style, his quick pacing, his work with actors in this movie especially, extremely impressive. I can't wait to see more movies by him.
Yeah, and as you go into his filmography, you'll really get the sense that, and you know this from watching the original Godzilla too, even if he's making a monster movie or a science fiction film, he is always trying to ground it in some real thematic, give it real thematic weight, and try to say something with these movies. He was a really big proponent of like global cooperation and anti-war. He served in the Japanese military in China in the 1930s. So like he saw the horrors of war firsthand, and movies like this to him were a perfect allegory to those real monsters of humanity.
Yeah, and that's why there's so much depth and complexity to these movies, I think, and why they're such so interesting to talk about. They're not just like campy monster movies. That's certainly a big part of their appeal, but they do have a lot of subtext, and they do kind of reflect what was going on in the real world at the time, which might sound like an absurd comparison for a movie as sort of like over the top as Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, but yeah, no, that is one of the like fascinating things about it, and Honda seems to do it extremely well.
Indeed. And then rounding out the all-star Toho Dream Team is Eiji Tsuburaya, the special effects wizard behind so many classics. He would later go on to found Tsuburaya Productions, which created the Ultraman series. Producer Tomoyaki Tanaka is producing this film, and he, of course, produced a lot of Akira Kurosawa's films. Cinematography by Hajime Kazumi, and the music, the wonderful, dramatic, dynamic score is by Akira Ifukube, who is back in the conductor's chair.
Just one of the most like badass soundtracks of all time. It is so cool. Like it's impossible to separate like the movie from the soundtrack because they, this idea of Godzilla and kaiju sort of like coalesce together, like the sound and the image, obviously. So just amazing music, and a big part of this movie's fun and power and excitement, I think.
Absolutely. You couldn't imagine this movie working as well as it does without the underpinnings of Fukube's musicianship.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Production backstory is going to be really fun. Before we get into that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about banditsemporium.com, the official t-shirt partner of Camp Kaiju. We have all new shirts out. We have shirts inspired by Godzilla, shirts inspired by Frankenstein, Dracula. Those will be fun coming up with Halloween. We're already thinking about it. And we're always cooking up more ideas. So stay tuned. Check out banditsemporium.com to look at those shirts and use promo code Camp Kaiju for a 10% discount. Best part is part of those proceeds then go to support Matt and I directly producing this show. So truly, can't thank you for that support. And whatever your style, banditsemporium.com has you covered. As they say, we sell shirts. As Camp Kaiju says, Ishiro Honda is the best.
That is what we say.
every episode.
Yep. It's our new slogan.
We got real niche real quick, even more so on this show.
Yeah. Yeah, we're just gonna go all the way. Yeah. Camp Honda is what we're gonna be from now
Camp
on.
Honda.
Little cross promotion there.
Yeah. You wanna go out into production?
Yeah, let's talk about it. Obviously, the Godzilla franchise was in full swing at the time of the making of this movie. Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster was the 5th film in the Godzilla franchise, and the second Godzilla movie produced in 1964 after Mothra versus Godzilla. It was originally intended to come out in 1965, but it was rushed into production by Toho after Akira Kurosawa's Red Beard, also a fantastic movie, was delayed, so that they kind of had an opening in their winter season and rushed this movie into production. The success of previous movies in which various monsters are featured kind of either fighting together or against each other, such as King Kong versus Godzilla in 1962, or even the earlier movie from '64, Mothra versus Godzilla, convinced producer Tomoyuki Tanaki to team up Godzilla, Rodan, and Mothra in taking down King Ghidorah. That new monster itself, Ghidorah, was a tribute, the director said, to Yamata no Orochi, a legendary 8-headed and 8-tailed Japanese serpent featured in ancient myths from the 8th century. Excuse me.
I love that. I just want to pause and say that I love bringing in real world mythology into this fantasy world.
Yeah. It makes you realize that these kaiju movies are kind of like continuing a legacy that goes back hundreds, if not thousands of years.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Let's not go down that rabbit hole right now about modern mythology.
Right. Yeah, that's a topic for another time, or maybe for some of our reviews on the Camp Kaiju website.
Ooh, nice tie in there.
Indeed. Vertical integration. I don't know if I'm using that term correctly.
You did. Congratulations.
Okay, cool. Nice. I'm learning capitalism slowly.
Overrated. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I say. Should I keep going, or do you want to take over the production backstory?
Sure, I can take over a little bit.
Cool. Is it okay while you're doing that? I'm sorry to interrupt a little bit. I have to plug in my phone charger. I'm gonna grab my charger.
Yeah.
Very sorry. Be right back.
Yeah, no, go for it. Okay, so the Godzilla suit and the Mothra larva prop were reused from previous films, although they were updated slightly with some cool special effects from Tsuburaya including radio-controlled eyeballs for Godzilla. So this lended a nice effect. Honda uses a lot of close-ups on the Godzilla and Rodan characters, and you're really able to see their eyes move and blink as well, if I'm not mistaken. So some nice intricate special effects there on the suits. The Ghidorah suit was obviously brand new. Those scenes were extremely difficult to film because not only was Ghidorah a new suit, but the flight capabilities of the monster, as well as the 3 heads, just required a massive amount of wire work that just took it took a large team of people up in the sort of the rafters of the studio just to marionette the kaiju. And I mean, I don't blame them. There was a learning curve on getting that right. This is kind of what makes Ghidorah the 3-headed monster unique. It's sort of the signature piece of this film. It's the anthropomorphization of the monsters. And this was something Honda initially, or maybe completely dug his heels in on a little bit. However, Tanaka, Tsuburaya, and Toho Pictures in general really wanted Honda to go in that direction. He was concerned about making the monsters caricatures and, again, taking away from any thematic messages, dramatic, serious messages that he wanted to convey, right? So in particular, he disagreed with the scene in which Mothra convinces Godzilla and Rodan to fight together. This is like the most memorable scene of the movie, I think, where the three hero kaiju are conversing with one another, and it is very silly. And you can see why a director like Honda would resist such pure camp as this.
Yeah, it is a very silly scene, but I think one of the things that we talk about on Camp Kaiju is that does it sound a lot worse?
Yeah.
Damn it, I was worried about that. Perhaps is it okay if I tried to join on my laptop and see if that sounds better?
Sure.
I'm very, very sorry to.
That's okay.
One second.
No problem. If you happen to be watching on YouTube, I just want to plug these cool stickers that Matt and I have made and ordered. They will be distributed at G-Fest the week after this coming week, so 2 weekends from now in Chicago. So if you're there, come by, say hello. We will have cool little Camp Kaiju stickers to give you. We'll also be recording a live episode about Terror of Mecha Godzilla, which will be showing at the festival that Saturday evening. But we'll obviously see it beforehand and give you the episode before. You can listen to it at your leisure. Yeah.
All right, I'm loading Zoom on my laptop. It should just take a minute. Very sorry, man, it's frustrating. I might have enough battery power left in my phone, so we can just keep on going on my phone, and if I run out of battery, then I'll join on my laptop. Does that sound good?
Sure. Is you're still muffled though.
I just replugged in my mic. Does it sound better now?
Maybe you have to look at the settings.
Check, check, 1, 2.
Maybe.
Check, 1, 2. Does it sound okay?
I think so. I mean, like I can hear you.
Okay. Well, I think this is as good as I'm going to get it for right now until it loads in my computer. Sorry.
That's okay.
Does it sound like significantly worse than before?
You do sound quieter, more muffled. I don't know, maybe it's a matter of turning up something. I don't know.
I don't really have like audio settings on my phone, so I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's all right. What if you took your mic out and just used the phone?
That's what I did when you said it sounded a lot worse.
Oh, okay.
So, but I'll try one more time. Check, 1, 2. Check, check.
Yeah.
It sounds worse.
No. It's not terrible. I like you said, I think it's what we'll work with.
Okay. Or we can wait another minute for my laptop.
Sure, we can wait.
Very, very slowly going. Sorry.
That's all right. It sucks. I'm sorry. But it's not the end of the world.
It's not the end of the world, but I definitely need to get a new laptop, and I don't really have the money for it right now. So that's the part that sucks.
Yeah.
But my laptop is saying connecting, and I have the spinning wheel of death, so it should be up in a moment.
Oh, I think you're in.
Ooh, okay. It might take a moment though. Come on.
Okay, your name has come on the screen.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna leave on my phone and then join on my laptop.
Great.
All right, 1 second.
Oh, nice.
Okay, my mic is plugged in. I've joined the meeting. Everything sounds good and looks
Yeah,
good.
you sound great.
All right, let's do this. I'm so sorry about
Let's
that.
let's rock and roll.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of forget where we were. I'm sorry.
That's all right. We were in the production background about Honda resisting to anthropomorphize the kaiju.
Yeah. Yeah. And you said like it kind of makes it more campy for sure, like especially the scene where Mothra is trying to tell them to join in the fight. So I remember what I was gonna say. Should I just start with that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So like what we've talked about on Camp Kaiju before is that like camp and sophistication can go together at the same time. You can have something that's campy that still tries to sort of like be artful and like present interesting themes and ideas and stuff like that. So personally, I don't think the campiness of like the anthropomorphized monster is a flaw, but I certainly understand why Honda would have reservations about that.
Yes, I agree with you. I think, I'm trying to put myself in his shoes where he's directed Gojira, which is this atomic dark horror allegory. And then you had some other Godzilla films. The Rodan standalone film takes itself very seriously, as does Mothra. And then none of those get as campy as this one. King Kong versus Godzilla does, and I think that was the beginnings of what would really bloom with this film.
Yeah, and I read that the producer Tanaka like did eventually regret that. Like he thought he was, kind of regretted the fact that the franchise kind of moved in that direction. But at least in this case, I think it works great.
Absolutely, because it was a fresh take on these films at that time. We think of it as a cliche now, but this was the first one. So, it did break new ground in some way, which I am always a fan of.
Indeed. Yeah.
I also wanted to add an interesting point that I think is worth sharing is that, again, thinking of this movie as like a standalone film when it came out, Godzilla, we may think of him as the star of these movies, but up until Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, the character of Godzilla was not really a star the way he would become. Mothra versus Godzilla puts him as the antagonist to the hero of Mothra. King Kong versus Godzilla, Kong's not really a hero, but he still has top billing over Godzilla, which I think is really interesting to show where that character of Godzilla was in the early 60s. And it wasn't until this film when a true antagonist in Ghidorah was actually introduced that finally put Godzilla in the role of protector that he would go on to really embody.
Yeah, and I think if Godzilla was kind of the representation of nuclear destruction as he was in the original movie, it definitely, to kind of get away from that and suddenly make him like this positive force. Yeah, like that's kind of, to Honda, it probably would be a betrayal of everything that it was supposed to stand for in the first place. So it's maybe unfortunate in that way, but it's a hell of a lot of fun in this movie. And I'm sure it leads to some crazy like monster fights in the future, which I can't wait to get to.
Right, that's just it. It's like it's a different cup of tea, but damn, it's a good cup of tea.
Yeah. We're about all different kinds of tea here, at Camp Kaiju. We love all tea.
Spilling the tea. Um, speaking of themes, I think we could just go into it if that's okay.
Yeah, sounds good.
So this movie, the themes of nuclear destruction are not really as explicit as they were before, but I think what is still very prevalent are the themes of international diplomacy that you do see in films like Gojira or The Return of Godzilla in the 80s, and again in Honda's earlier standalone Mothra film. There's huge, you'd really like this, Matt. There's a lot of that Cold War tension between Japan being caught between the United States and the Soviet Union, which is always really, really cool to see in a would-be campy monster movie.
Yeah, I love that sort of thing. And, I know Ishiro Honda kind of downplayed that when people asked him if Ghidorah was supposed to represent like, the threats of China and the United States and the Soviet Union kind of like encroaching on Japan. He always said, no, it's not a political allegory. It's just fun, basically. But of course, we don't have to take that at face value. And there is some subtext there for sure.
Yeah, and your Chinese connection was really interesting to me because that clearly, I mean, there's a very historical animosity between Japan and China. 1930s, like I said, Honda was in China with the Japanese Imperial Army. With that said, he's not espousing any sort of violence. He truly believes in world peace and this cooperation. So while I can see, maybe overtly people are like, oh, it's a dragon. It's like the Chinese dragon coming to terrorize Japan. I might be inclined to believe Honda's opinion that no, it's not meant to be a Chinese allegory.
Yeah, for sure. The symbolism is maybe a little bit too on the nose there for that,
Right.
Yeah. I think also like the political intrigue in Selgina, where Princess Salno is targeted by assassins, and apparently her political enemies want her killed, including her uncle, who seems to have some kind of like leadership role in the fictional country of Selgina. All that is pretty fascinating, and we don't really find out exactly what's going on in Selgina, like why they want her dead. But I still think it's just kind of interesting to like tap into this like atmosphere in the early 60s where the Cold War obviously is going on. You have a lot of different factions which are, might be communist or socialist or anarchist or various like freedom fighting factions. I just think that it kind of works its way into this movie in a sort of interesting way, even though there are like no specifics to that like subplot in this movie,
Yeah, and the whole assassination story I find truly compelling and truly of its time. By 1964, the James Bond movies had kicked off this whole wave of spy films and assassination plots and this, that. And I just associate all that with the early to mid 60s. And this film, for me, just fits the bill.
Yeah, totally. And that's why I think like, there are numerous kind of plots or subplots going on in this movie at the same time, but I think all of them work pretty well. And like the monster fight and the sort of espionage subplot, they sound like they wouldn't go together at all, but they sort of just make the movie more crazy and entertaining, and somehow they work together.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the human story in this movie, in Ghidorah, the three-headed monster, is among the most compelling of Godzilla movies, certainly of the Showa era, which have a lot of hit and misses, but this is certainly a hit for me, and just very, very enjoyable.
Yeah, definitely.
Was there anything else in themes you wanted to cover?
As the producer Tanaka put it, the Godzilla movies, this one in particular, I think is kind of about nature rising over humanity, perhaps as some kind of like retribution for how humans have exploited the natural world. I think that theme is
like there's not much more to it than that. Like that's basically like there's not a lot of like subtlety there or whatever, you know. But it works, and you know, as one of the monsters says, um, or sorry, actually it's the Venusian alien who's talking through Princess Salno. She says, "Earth will perish if it keeps going like this. King Ghidorah will turn the planet into a tomb." Which is not only like just such an awesome line of dialogue, but seems to be kind of like one of the main themes of the movie, that it's almost like all these natural forces are rising up against us, you know?
Yeah. That just made me remember another point that I wanted to share is I was struck by the idea of people either believing or not believing these fantastical forces that are presented to them. Even from the very beginning in the movie, it starts with UFO watchers, and some of them are like, this is hogwash, like this is nothing, you're all idiots essentially.
Yeah.
But then you have some who are like, no, watch the skies. And then from there, the Venusian princess, she could be she's a prophet. She's foretelling these doomsday scenarios that do come true, and it's those who don't believe her who end up suffering for it.
Yeah, exactly right. And you know, it's hard not to, like in our modern context, like read in some themes of climate change and sort of like uncertainty about what the next century or so is going to hold for the planet, and like all the changes that human life is going to go through. You know, I thought about that repeatedly throughout the movie. And like, if people don't heed these warnings about how, you know, as the princess says, Earth will perish if it keeps going like this, it'll be a rude awakening. Not to be too much of a downer. Sorry.
Well, I mean, King Ghidorah does not die at the end of this movie.
Mhm.
He flies off into space, so you know he'll be back.
Indeed, to wreak havoc once again upon the planet and its people.
Yeah, so the you're right in line with Honda on ending on a slightly ominous note.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
um yeah, I'm good with all that stuff. That's some good digging.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think we can move into the form and the aesthetic if you want to.
Cool. You seem to have very strong opinions.
I do, because this movie is gorgeous. It is beautiful, like just amazing color cinematography, great widescreen compositions. You know, it's a beautiful mix of on location cinematography and model sets. There are even some shots that I feel like go on longer than necessary, simply so we can enjoy like the visual splendor of the movie. In particular, there's one shot that's taken from a helicopter. I believe it's after, or maybe around the time that Rodan is about to awaken from Mount Aso. So there's this helicopter shot, and we see the smoke kind of rising from the mountain and like curling against the mountain. And it lasts way longer than it really has to. Like, we see what's going on, and then it still lasts another like 10 or 15 seconds, maybe. And as far as I can tell, the only reason for that is because it's a gorgeous image. And I really, really love it when directors like, they're not just trying to tell a story, they also care about like the visual form of the movie, since cinema obviously is a visual art form. And I was just astounded throughout this entire movie at how beautiful it was.
I agree. I think I've watched this movie more times than I can count now, and I think it's in part largely because of the brilliance of the color and the camera work, obviously, but it just looks good. It's just a good looking movie, very
Yeah,
visually pleasing.
absolutely. Yeah. I was gonna bring up one other thing, but I'll wait until the good portion towards the end, towards our evaluations. I'll bring it up later.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, so the special effects, I mean, we can talk about music more in depth if you want. I didn't mean to skip it.
no, that's all right. I mean, it's kind of what I said before. The music is awesome, and it was sampled frequently by a lot of different hip hop artists: MF Doom, Pharoah Monch, Eminem, and some others, I think. So yeah, just amazing music.
I love that.
It's, yeah, I mean, like a lot of those songs are really great too. Simon Says by Pharoah Monch uses like the famous like bo 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 bo, you know, the Godzilla
Yeah.
theme or whatever, and it's awesome. It's great.
I need to listen to more of that kind of music.
One of my favorite genres. Yeah, especially when you spot samples like that, it's very satisfying when that happens.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I was just geeking out about the special effects. Subaraya had worked on other kaiju films before this, but I think this is a film that he achieved another level of precision and effectiveness with his miniature work and the model work. I mean, the kaiju aside, the special effects on the ground are so intricate and detailed. And they added King Ghidorah's electricity in post,
Mm.
and that looks great. It's synced up perfectly with Ghidorah's heads
Yeah,
and used to great effect in the destruction of various cities.
totally
Yeah,
agree. Yeah, the first like destruction scene after Ghidorah awakens, the scene that you're talking about, is really really amazing and intense. And yeah, there's like that scene ends with like a big construction crane kind of, or maybe it's a radio tower, kind of like collapsing on itself and then like demolishing a couple buildings, I think, when it lands. And it
Mhm.
looks so good. It's I feel like we're way past the point in the original Godzilla of like clearly a man in a suit. I mean, like we have that at certain parts of this movie, but other scenes are like very intense and convincing, I think, you know?
Yeah, and it takes it beyond the man in a suit with King Ghidorah specifically, because yeah, there's a man in there, but I can't imagine the man is in the suit as it's flying.
Right.
And just like the puppetry that went into bringing this monster to life is incredible to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, you know, I think you were talking about this before, but like just how difficult it was to like with all the different wires and like I'm pretty sure Ghidorah, I think they said had like at least 10. I think it was maybe like between 10 and 15 like puppeteers controlling the heads and like the tail and everything.
Yeah,
Just how much like care and artistry went into that. It's so impressive.
seriously. And I didn't notice any wires, any like obvious wires. Did you?
Not obvious. I think I was kind of looking for them in spots, so maybe I caught one here or there, but for the most part, it's done really well.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're there. I think if you look hard enough,
Mm,
especially with when we're watching these movies in HD these days.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's maybe a good and a bad thing. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's all good. Yeah. Um, the monster fights are comical and ridiculous. I have more to say about those, and I do have some criticisms of some of the monster suits themselves that I'll
Mhm.
get to when I get there. But they are fun and ridiculous, and it's just always charming to see these characters, these monster characters, interact and sort of smack each other around.
Yeah. You know, like regardless of whether it's campy or maybe like weakens the impact of the movie a little bit, which I personally don't think it does, but like it's just so fun. Like I feel like it's almost ungrateful in a way to like you know, like sort of like criticize the sort of like ridiculousness of the fight scenes because they're so entertaining. Like you know, like the 5-year-old self inside of me came out during those scenes and just was like having a blast, you know? It's
Right.
impossible not to like.
That's just it. Like I feel bad criticizing. I will, but I'll never. I can't forget the 5-year-old in me
Yeah.
where it's just like, this is just. I can just put this on all day. This is great.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
uh, so if you're ready to go into our breakdowns,
Yeah, I think so. We covered, you know, like the visual form is really beautiful. We talked about some of the themes. So yeah, I think we can get in the evaluations.
okay, cool. Well, we've clearly loved a lot already. Um, I'll just say that I'm just I'm still impressed by Honda's direction, being able to uh, coordinate and maintain a sense of cohesion between the campy elements and the more serious messaging that he's trying to convey. I feel like in the hands of a lesser director or a more or a less astute director, the film could have gone really heavy into camp or not played those notes at all, which would have been fine. It would have been a movie. But I think Honda takes it to a next level by being able to incorporate all of these elements into a pretty coherent film in the end.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. I totally agree with that. For me, like I can't overstate how visually impressive this movie is, and to me, like that plays a big role in like tying everything together. I think even if it could be a little uneven in some scenes, like just how well put together it is, kind of like helps to overlook that,
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's so impressive that Honda is able to do that. And I mean, like, there's so much that's good about this movie. I'll just use like as an example, my favorite scene in the movie is when we're introduced to the show being on like a TV kind of talk show program, which has two male characters who are a little like absurd looking, little humorous looking, and then they bring out these two 5-year-old boys that look very similar. And then we're finally introduced to the show being, and they're like in between like the two guys and the two 5-year-old boys. So it's a really bizarre composition, just like the way the shot is set up. And then like we cut to like this musical number that the Shobeen perform, where we kind of cut to Infant Island, where Mothra is from. And it is one of the craziest scenes I have ever seen in a movie. And I know that sounds like hyperbole, but like I was so joyfully just like my jaw was on the floor. Like we have like Mothra, of course, this like larval monster that's sort of like wriggling at it like in this cave, and then we have all these dancers and this really beautiful song. Just such a bizarre scene, and like it's like psychedelic art. It's like just so mind-blowing, and at its best I think this movie can be that kind of like jaw-dropping.
And all of that you forget is taking place within the television set that somebody else is watching.
Yeah, you're right. It's like a total it's not necessary to the plot of the movie, really. I mean, it does kind of introduce Mothra, but yeah, the form of it is really bizarre. And yeah, like the sort of TV show within the movie thing is like such a great concept. It's great. I love it.
Yeah. Okay. So real quick, you have to watch Mothra now because Honda takes those psychedelic moments and like ramps them up to 11 in that movie.
I can't wait. Wow.
It's really cool. And King Kong versus Godzilla, one of the main thematic messaging of that film, Honda is critiquing the Japanese cultural obsession with television at the time, which I just saw parallels of that with him like zooming into this television again to explore this other world.
Yeah, cool. That's a good point. I didn't really like pick up on that theme, but yeah, it reminds me of a Yasujiro Ozu movie, Good Morning, which is about two boys that like want a TV set more than anything else, and like the kind of like mayhem that causes in their family. I think that's from when is that from the late 60s? Really, really great movie. So maybe that was kind of like a prevalent theme in Japanese cinema at the time.
Maybe the westernization of Japan, and maybe people like Honda were kind of, well, they were criticizing it.
Yeah. No, I love that. That's a good point. Like it just makes like an already awesome, bizarre scene even better to have that subtext to it.
Yeah. So
That's
good.
Great. I loved it. Yeah. Can I mention one other thing in like the good category for me for this movie?
Yeah.
Then I don't want to give away too many spoilers, I guess, but like the very end of this movie is surprisingly touching. Like after all these kind of like campy monster fights and everything, there's a farewell between two characters, which reminded me a lot of the movie Roman Holiday with Audrey Hepburn and Gregory Peck. And I don't know if it was intentional or not, but to have this kind of like bittersweet, poignant ending, and to have it actually be like fairly effective in the midst of all this like ridiculousness is so impressive, and speaks to what you were saying before about Honda's ability to like juggle all these different tones and characters and subplots. The fact that it all comes together so well like that is just like amazingly impressive to me.
So you never read that Roman Holiday connection? You just came up with that?
Yeah.
Oh,
is it other people have pointed that out? Cool.
That's a thing.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, it's that makes it's a pretty they end in like very similar ways, so I guess I'm not too surprised to hear that. But But yeah, no, and it works pretty well in this movie. Actually, very well, I would say.
Let me look it up because I read it in the Criterion Collection essay for this film. Maybe I can pull it up online.
Cool. I was looking for the Criterion Collection essay and I couldn't find it online for some reason.
Yeah, they usually have it on their website, right?
I thought so.
Yeah, I don't see it here, but yeah, come over sometime. I've got like this huge book that the Blu-rays came in. It's like a big book, but it's got an essay for each of the Showa era films.
Awesome. Criterion usually has really great writing to go along with their releases, so that's good to hear. I'd love to read
that. Okay, well, that was a fun tangent.
Yeah, indeed. The bad. Do you have anything in the bad category?
I do, but
or anything else that you wanted to add in the good category? Sorry.
No, nothing that we haven't covered before. I think Ifukube's score is gorgeous. It just, like I said, it underpins everything you're watching. Super Eye's special effects are gorgeous, and the human storyline is impressively compelling.
Yeah,
I could just watch that movie as well as the kaiju.
Yeah, totally. I was surprised how compelled I was by that.
It's like some good science fiction as well. Like we talked about the spy stuff, spy tones. There's like it's blended with characters from Venus, which is so campy. It's so good.
Yeah. And there's like a fun brother-sister relationship too, because the detective is the brother of the journalist character, the female journalist Naoko. And they play it really well. They have this fun kind of like bickering relationship, Yeah, like all the relationships in this movie are pretty compelling, surprisingly.
Agreed. So my bad stuff actually just kind of focuses on the monsters a little bit. And it's only because I've seen, I don't know, I feel like I have slightly higher thresholds for my Godzilla films. I feel like the final fight is great. It's just, I love watching Mothra, Rodan, and Godzilla team up on Ghidorah. Perfect. When Godzilla and Rodan fight, that is a little underwhelming for me. They're just sort of hitting each other back and forth. There doesn't seem to be a lot of unique or creative fight choreography that you do see in other Godzilla films. Just seems a little unimaginative. Also, Godzilla's atomic breath in those scenes is really just breath. There doesn't seem to be, they don't use that blue animated special effect that they even use in this film in the beginning, earlier in the film. But when it comes to the fight with Rodan, he's just kind of misting all over him. And I was like, I have seen better, Godzilla.
The misting is not the most impressive move that he has. Yeah, that is true.
No. And regarding Mothra, this movie does not have Mothra transform into its final butterfly moth being, which I think is missed. And I think it reflects the sort of the rushed nature of the project.
Yeah, I think like this is maybe a case where my like lack of knowledge of other kaiju movies, which obviously we will rectify throughout the course of these podcasts, but yeah, like I have not seen Mothra, so I don't have that comparison. But yeah, everything that you said definitely makes sense. It does feel like the Godzilla Rodan fight is a little bit rushed. There are some close-ups of Godzilla's suit in that fight, which are sort of unimpressive. Like I read that, they kind of updated the suit a little bit. So maybe like the suit that they had close-ups of in that scene wasn't totally finished maybe, or just like not as like well put together as some other suits. So
yeah.
I would agree that's probably in the bad category for me as well.
But our 5-year-old selves love it and do not care about any of that.
No, still, yeah. I mean, like, and even if it's like a little unimpressive. Like it still looks awesome. Like
Yeah.
it's very clearly like do it yourself and very colorful, very well shot. So
Yep.
really not that much in the bad category.
No, still worth it.
Absolutely. And how?
Yeah. But wait, there's more. Do you have, I don't have any more bad stuff. That's all I've got.
No, that's pretty much all I have.
Okay.
Yeah. I really love this movie. Yeah,
Dude.
I'll talk more in the campy category, I guess, about some things that could be seen as bad, but I don't think they are.
Oh, go for it.
Well, I think it's like the best kind of camp where it's like intentionally comedic. I think it's really ridiculous. Like I think like some of the attempts at comic relief could be seen as like a little like cringe inducing or like a little bit weak. Like for example, there's like a public sort of scene that forms when I think it's also on Mount Aso, where this guy's like, Venus, is that in Africa? And like he's sort of like this goofy comic relief character.
Yeah.
But like it's so entertaining. It's like they found the perfect actor for that role. Also in the same scene, there are a bunch of like baseball players that are standing to the side in like very bright blue outfits or uniforms. Like it just, that kind of thing where it, like there's not really a good reason for it. It's ridiculous, it's campy, but it adds to like the visual splendor of the movie again, and like it just is so entertaining.
Right. Because like it could have been just a bunch of nondescript people in suits.
Yeah.
But Honda uses a clear like a little league baseball team. I was like, of course they would be there in a realistic group.
Yeah.
It was just a nice little flourish that added, like you said, color and character to this scene that would otherwise just be pretty unremarkable.
Yeah, for sure. And it's hard to tell if it is little league. Like it seems like it should be little league players, but they look like they're like in their like late 20s or something.
Yeah.
So it's like, it just adds to the surrealism and the bizarreness of the image.
My campy was with the final fight with Ghidorah. Ghidorah shoots his electricity beams. It's like, I think it's a crotch shot at Godzilla.
And he kind of like doubles over in pain a little bit. Yeah. I remember that. Yeah. It's like an America's Funniest Home Videos moment.
Yeah,
Like
that's like,
shot, yeah.
okay, we are no longer in the world of 1954's Gojira.
Yeah, that's a good point. As far away from possible as that from that.
But not, like you said, not in a bad way. It's because it's done intentionally, it's done stylistically within this framework that we've been viewing the film. So I do not discredit it, but it is campy as heck.
Yeah, they're embracing that shift in tone for sure.
Yeah.
And I would put like Godzilla's, like he has the misting, which you talked about, like that one special move. And then it seems like his other special move is just like throwing and kicking rocks at his enemies, which he does to Rodan for like seemingly a good like 10 minutes throughout the movie.
Yep.
Yeah, it's really amusing. And then it goes on for so long that you're like, oh, I wish he did something else. But then it goes on even longer, and it makes it even funnier that that's like the only thing that he does, basically.
And Mothra's like, no, stop.
Stop throwing rocks at your enemy.
We must join forces. I mean, that whole scene is the best of camp when they are speaking to each other. When the first time I saw this movie, that's where my jaw just hit the floor. I was like, oh my God, this is it.
Yeah, it's ridiculous in the best possible way, because ridiculous leads to entertaining, so I'm usually okay with that.
Yeah. Well, man, that's all I got, actually.
That's all I got. It's hard to put into words though how much I loved this movie, because it's beautiful, fun, entertaining, unique, creative. Like it's one of my favorite kaijus that we've seen so far.
That's awesome. And this is a great for someone who loves sharing these movies with people who aren't as familiar. This is a great place to start. From here, you got to watch Invasion of Astro Monster, which is the one after this. Rodan and Godzilla make another appearance. And then Destroy All Monsters. Ghidorah is back. And now he's fighting more than just Rodan, Mothra, and Godzilla. a whole host of other kaiju allies come to play. And it's like the Avengers. It's like this culmination of a decade's worth of individual films in this
Yeah.
universe. It's really neat to draw parallels between this era of Godzilla films and the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because the MCU did not originate the idea of a shared universe.
Yeah.
And it's just really awesome to see it like 50 years ago.
That's a great point. I don't know if we have time to dig into that tonight, but I definitely hope we talk about that more in the future, like the parallels between, Toho, like the kind of classic era, and the Marvel universe. Like, I think that's a great comparison. There's a lot of contrasts there, which I think would be very telling in terms of like the Japanese industry at that time and like the Hollywood industry these days. But
Yeah.
I cannot wait to watch those movies because they sound awesome, and if they're as good as this one, I will absolutely love them.
Yeah, man. All right. So what's your final rating? And then we'll do some housekeeping after that.
Cool. So yeah, just to give the ratings that we that are available to us, our kind of framework here. We have, it's a timeless classic. It definitely stands the test of time. Or there may be some antiquated moments, but overall it's great and stands the test of time. It could be historically significant or just fun, but does not stand the test of time. Or lastly, it is not worth revisiting. It definitely does not stand the test of time. So obviously, like I alluded to before, my verdict is this is a timeless classic. It definitely stands the test of time. This might be the most fun that I've had watching a movie for Camp Kaiju so far. Really, really loved it.
Again, I love that. I love that. The first time I saw this movie, I was right there with you. Now that I've seen it a few times, I am going to say, there are some antiquated moments.
Mm-hmm.
There are some dated moments with some of the suits, specifically in that fight choreography. But no, I mean, it stands the test of time. You can throw this movie on at any time, anywhere, with anybody, and just have a ball. It's just a great kaiju monster movie.
Absolutely. And I think it's also a perfect way to kick off Kai July and get back to some of the great, good, classic monster movies.
Definitely. And on that note, coming up next week, live from G-Fest, will be Terror of Mechagodzilla from 1975. Ishiro Honda's final film, actually. Not just Godzilla film, but it is his swan song as the director. He would later do some second unit directing with Kurosawa in the 70s and 80s, but The Terror of Mechagodzilla is his cherry on top, if you will.
A fitting follow-up to Ghidorah, the three-headed monster.
Absolutely. And then at the end of the month, Matt, what are we watching?
We're watching Rodan at the end of the month with a special guest. I don't want to ruin that right now, but we'll have a guest joining us to talk about one of the classic kaiju movies from the 50s, 56. Is that right? I think that's right. So yeah, stay tuned for Rodan towards the end of July as well.
I can't wait. I love having guests now on the show.
Yeah, it's going to be a good roundtable discussion, good new perspectives and viewpoints. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Definitely. I'm very excited to see that movie again. So until next time, everybody, thank you for hanging out. Follow us on all the social medias. If you liked this show, tell your friends about it and get them to watch and listen to it as well. And we thank you for that support. All right. Well,
thank you.
All right. See you, Matt.
See you, Vincent. And we will talk again soon.
Yeah. Bye.
Right.
Stay
Bye.
campy.
Indeed.
That's what we say.